Once I have those frames cleaned and the foundation back in them, then I'll melt some wax in my skillet here and re-wax them. Now, these are not those frames. These are just frames that either they're new frames, or most of them are actually frames that were in the hive last year and didn't get drawn. So here's a little lesson for you. This part of the foundation may have no wax at all because they've stripped that wax off to repurpose it to try to build some comb here. And because it has no wax on it, they'll never draw that properly. People talk about them building comb that's errant, and that's why. So see how this comb is built? If you look closely, you can see that they started building the comb perpendicular to the frame. And that's not what you usually want. So I can scrape that off, I'll put it in my skillet, it'll remelt, and I'll reapply wax with my roller. So and it doesn't matter, I can scrape that entire thing off. You know, I don't necessarily, but you know, you can just refresh the whole thing. Get that back in the skillet, it melts right away. Okay. Typically I've used a foam roller, and that's what this is. It's a mess. And it works good, right? It works just fine. I don't have a lot of complaints about that. I did watch everything gets sticky. I did watch a Bob Binney video that they made a while ago, and they were using he called it a 3/8 nap roller. I didn't see anything listed like that in my store. So I bought this. It's just I don't know, what do they call it? Microfiber, something or other. So I'm going to try that. We'll see how that goes on. So I think my wax is a good temperature here. So I'll roll this on, see how it goes. I'll tell you, that is, right away I can see that's a lot nicer than the foam roller I was using. The one thing about the foam roller is often it slides on the foundation. This still slides in the skillet, but the skillet is a no-stick skillet, so I would expect that. Yeah, that goes on really nice. Thanks, Bob. So I don't really need to wax there where there's comb. I can wax it a bit, it doesn't hurt. And so that's plenty of wax. I like the black foundation. You can really see where you've waxed or where you missed a spot. This is just still wet. It's waxed. See, so that's good. That's what you want to see. I've got a little bit of wax moth damage here, so I'll get rid of those critters. I've still got my pressure washer set up here, so I just washed that, got all the cocoons off. There's always wax moth poop, which is disgusting. And then I can re-wax that right away. It's still a little bit wet, but I think it'll be just fine. I like using a skillet for this for many reasons. It heats from underneath, from the bottom, whereas some vessels you might hear people use the heat from the side. It doesn't melt quite as nicely. And also it has a thermostat on it. I can set it. I can actually see what temperature it's running typically, and it is a skillet, so it's not made to run especially cool. Wax melts at about 73 degrees C, and the skillet's low end is about 100 C. So it seems to work just fine. And you can ramp it up a bit to get the melt happening. and then turn it down once it's melted. This wax in here is actually really nice and clean. It's just a brick that I pulled out of my solar wax melter yesterday. So I just threw it right in there. So the solar wax melter sits in the apiary, and it gets my scrapings and any wax, any comb that I find out there. So this is free wax right here. This is just recovered. It's a little bit of wax moth. There, I'll just hit that with pressure washer. Some of these are not too bad. I just wanted to add a little wax, get them going in the summer. They'll make a nice job of that. Some more wax moth cocoon there I'll get rid of. People ask me sometimes, can you put too much wax on? Yes and no. The implications of putting too much wax on are that when they build the comb, they may not clean all the wax out of the bottom of the cell. But that's not to say that if there's wax in the bottom of the cell, they won't clean it out, because they will. Now, can you put too much wax on from an economic standpoint? Not really, because all of that wax that you're putting on here is wax the bees don't have to produce. So all of that wax then will translate to you getting that wax back again next season. So I'm not afraid to be fairly liberal with my re-waxing. You're maybe thinking, oh, I thought you used black foundation. Well, I do. There's light colored foundation always creeps in here and there. So I like to get it drawn out so that maybe I can sell it if somebody wants to buy foundation. Somebody's been chewing on that. Little buggers. It's a nice new frame too. They don't chew the old stuff. So how I weed this out, and you can see some of them are not needing much, but I'm here, so why not? Because I use a radial extractor, I handle every frame going in and every frame going out, and therefore I can make an assessment on every frame as it comes out, and I can sort that into separate boxes for re-waxing later on. You see my Honey Super pallets I'm building. That's the kind of thing. I'll put a pallet there and make one complete pallet of re-waxing frames. And you may hear me talk about re-waxing and pre-waxing. It's really the same thing. It's the difference is, to me, and it's just terms that I use, the difference is re-waxing is frames that have been in the hive, see they're kind of drawn and not very well. Pre-waxing is just adding wax to new frames, and both are very worthwhile. Well, re-waxing is vital. Pre-waxing is worthwhile as well. They really draw nicely when they've got plenty of wax on them. So what I'm noticing with this roller, this nap roller versus the foam roller, it seems to be adding wax to the top of the cells more than getting wax inside. Now, it still gets wax inside the cells, but it seems to do a little better job of just staying on top, which ideally is what you want. It's really not that critical, so don't lose any sleep over it for sure. So I'll put more wax in here. This is just the wax that I rendered off this spring, and it's still got, sludge on the bottom of it, which doesn't hurt a lot. But when you're doing the lighter foundation, it's nice to have cleaner wax. But what I can do is I can take some of this off, but I can also set that in the skillet this way up and then take it out before it gets to this side, before it melts it completely through. That's been working well. And when the skillet cools, I'll get a thin layer and all of that stuff comes out with it. And I'll just set that aside for the next round of rendering. This is a good Sunday job. I enjoy this. I enjoy doing this job. I'm not sure if there's a downside to waxing these while they're a little bit wet. There's not much water there, but still a little bit wet. But I'll let you know if it goes poorly. I've heard a lot of discussion, or read a lot of discussion online about this whole plastic versus wax foundation debate, and I have no skin in the game as far as what you use. You use whatever you want to use. However, in the interest of helping beekeepers who are looking for a solution and don't have the experience, it bothers me when there's misinformation put out there. And the misinformation I'm talking about is bees won't draw plastic foundation, which is complete nonsense. Van Lake sells millions of sheets of foundation, plastic foundation every year, and I doubt that it's all going into the landfill immediately. The bees definitely will use it. Now, what is true is if foundation doesn't have any wax on it, bees won't draw it. They don't see it as, undrawn honeycomb at all. See, that's kind of drawn, but I'm here. So if your foundation is not made of beeswax and it's not covered in beeswax, then bees aren't going to draw it. And you can justify whatever reasons you want to use plastic or use wax. That's fine. I'm completely fine with that. I have no investment in your beekeeping. However, don't spread misinformation. Bees draw plastic foundation fine. And no, there's no difference between the black and any other color. It's dark in the hive. I like the black because once it ends up in a brood chamber, I can see the eggs against the black foundation much easier. That really comes handy when you're doing grafting and whatnot. I find it quite comical on these forums how beekeepers will almost get angry when they're unable to convince someone to do things their favorite way, right? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I'm interested in you having information you need to make your choices. I've made my choices, and I can tell you about, why I've made my choices that I've made. But you're not me, and you're not my situation. I can see this roller. Well, it's not too bad. They do take a beating rolling against that wooden edge there. It's kind of sharp. The foam roller definitely deteriorates on the end. This is an excellent Sunday activity, a rainy day activity, and it is supposed to rain again today. Boy, we get a lot of rain. I like to get enough on the roller that there's a little bead of liquid molten wax ahead of the roller. Seems to work nicely. Now these next frames are some that I culled last summer and washed in the melter. Well, it looks like I've done these. Maybe I didn't do them very well though. The white is hard to see the wax. Sometimes if I get the temperature wrong, the wax temperature wrong, it doesn't roll on very well. It kind of has to be cool enough that when it hits the foundation, it solidifies fairly quickly. So how many am I doing? I'm probably doing about 80 boxes that have are re-waxes. Like this is a fairly new frame, but I think it was in a hive. So I'm doing about 80 boxes that are, you know, various stages of, you know, partly drawn or not drawn at all. And then I have about 75 boxes of the culled frames from last summer. So there's plenty to keep me busy. I don't mind. I don't really mind. I love seeing how the bees draw this. They draw it so fast. They'll draw it in a day. Not draw it completely. I mean, they'll draw the wax you've given them. They'll just go pop, and that foundation will just come right alive right away. It looks like this snap roller is not leaving quite as much wax on the foundation. Foundation bows up when it gets hot on one side, and then when I do the other side, it comes back flat again. So this young fella here was here yesterday. He asked me, I was showing him that I was doing this, and so of course the question always comes up, you know, what kind of frame foundation do you use and why? And so we got into that, and so I explained to him why I've made the choice I've made. I use a wooden frame and a plastic foundation, as you can tell. And that's really my favorite. And there's different reasons. The wooden frames go through my old cow and uncapper better than a one-piece plastic frame. So I've taken all the one-piece plastic frames out of my operation. I wasn't crazy about the one-piece plastic frames either. They seem to twist and bend too much in the hive, and then the bees don't draw them properly in the brood chamber. If a frame is going to break, it's going to be this corner, this ear generally. And that's hard to fix on a plastic foundation. On a wooden one, you can drive a nail or a screw in that temporarily, and ultimately I can replace that whole top bar pretty easily. So I lose only the top bar, not the whole frame. I don't care for wax foundation. If you remember me saying how the bees will strip the wax off of the foundation to build comb, they'll do that with wax as well, except they don't strip the wax off the foundation. They'll just chew the foundation up to nothing. And then you have to replace it, or if that doesn't bother you, you're just going to have You know, you see these wax foundation frames and they have worker comb in a lobe, and then they have drone comb in the corners. Some people don't mind that. I don't want that. I control my drone laying on my story frames. And I don't want just drone comb just everywhere. And I don't like wax foundation for other reasons. I've been stabbed by those wires too often. They come apart in the extractor. They're not as strong as the plastic ones. And if the bees chew it up, or if the wax moths chew it up, I'm off buying another, or making another sheet of wax foundation. There's not much that's going to destroy that plastic. I don't often lose a sheet of plastic foundation for any reason. So those are some of the reasons that I prefer a wooden frame and a plastic foundation. Oh, there's another thing here. Under my encapper, I have a hive body with 10 brand new frames, like just the wooden part. And that's because if I have a frame come along and it's broken, compromised in any way, I can sit that down full of honey. I can pop that out of that wooden frame, and then I can get one of those new ones, and I'll pop that into a brand new frame, and it goes right in the extractor. Nobody's the wiser. I've saved all the comb, I've saved all the honey, I've saved the foundation. Then I can take that broken frame and I might be able to fix it, or maybe not. And if I throw it in the garbage, I'll throw it in the burning pit, and they make a really nice fire pit to enjoy at night with my wife. Because these old wax-laden frames, boy, they burn nice. So again, it's preserving that plastic foundation. We're living in an age where plastic is vilified, and you know, people have their attitudes toward that and their decisions, and that's fine. I may not share those, however, it's a way to keep the plastics reused and not going into the garbage, which I feel is important. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not telling you what to use. People just ask me how I make my decisions and my choices, and that's just my train of logic on the subject. And you can take that for whatever you want to take that for. Maybe I'm crazy, and that's okay. Crazy people are people too, right? And there's a fine line between crazy and genius. I'm not sure what side of that line I'm on, but suffice it to say, it's a fine line. How much wax does it take, you ask? I find that when I'm waxing, say a pre-waxing, that means I'm adding a coat of wax to a new foundation frame. I'll get about 10 frames per pound of wax. So that's pretty nice and easy math. If you got 100 frames, then just have 10 pounds of wax on hand, and you should have enough. See, this is a fairly new one, but I think it has been in a hive. It definitely needs to be pre-waxed. Takes a bit to see that there's actually wax on it. Now, when I saw Bob's video, they were going really slow. Maybe that's the deal. They were going, I don't know if they're going maybe this slow. That is working pretty good. So somebody asked me yesterday on a comment what I suggest for people who run strictly medium honey supers, because I made a comment on a video saying that I never draw comb in a brood chamber. That doesn't mean you can't. It doesn't mean you shouldn't. You know, again, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I just don't do that. I find that drawing comb in a honey super, on a honey flow, is far more effective. See, I didn't shake the water out of this one, and now it's kind of weird. And so I don't do it, and I have that luxury because I don't run any medium honey supers. All of my honey supers are deeps, and so I have that luxury. That's one of the big advantages. And this young man who was here yesterday, he was also under the impression that a honey super was a medium. Honey super is not a medium. Honey super is a honey super. Honey super has honey in it. A brood chamber has brood in it. It's not dictated by size. You can run medium, you can run shallow, you can run 3/4, you can run any size brood chamber, any size honey super you want. You know, you're not relegated to deep brood chambers and medium honey supers. Having said that, I get why people want to run a medium honey super. I lift deeps regularly, and I'm reminded every time I do what the allure of a medium honey super is. Having said that, there are downsides. One of the biggest downsides is lack of standardized equipment. Any of my frames can be used in any configuration. I don't have to distinguish between honey frames and brood frames. I don't ever have to say, well, I can't put that frame in my honey super because it's a deep frame. So now what am I going to do? I just put it in honey super if that's what I care to do. So that's a real bonus for using one size equipment. And again, I know beekeepers who use medium brood chambers. Sawmill Charlie does that. A girl that I mentor here does that. She took that on herself because she didn't want to lift any deeps. She doesn't have any deeps. Everything she has is a medium. So don't get trapped in the idea that a honey super has to be a particular size. It doesn't. So having said that, because all of my honey frames and all of my brood frames are deeps, I have the luxury of drawing my comb, all of my comb, in a honey super, in a honey flow. So my advice for somebody who's running all mediums, take the hit on one of your honey supers, and this goes if you're a new beekeeper, like a first year beekeeper, or expanding. And I'll tell you why I say that. Take that, put that deep, put one deep honey super on your colony during the honey flow. Have them draw those deep frames. Extract those, put those away for the following season, because you're going to need those for expansion and swarm control. Okay? There's nothing like having some extra drawn comb for those two reasons. So that's what I suggest. If you can't do that, drawing it in the brood chamber is fine. However, that doesn't really give you extra comb for the next season. I'm back at the frame waxing station in the honey house, and I have something to tell you about this microfiber roller. This is not what you want to use, and I think the fact that it's microfiber is probably why it's not what you want to use. I was going off a video that Bob Binney did, and he did not say use a microfiber. He said use a 3/8 nap roller. Well, he didn't say to use a 3/8 nap. He said they use a 3/8 nap roller. So I decided to try it. Now, this works great for a while, until I think that microfiber nap overheats, and then it'll turn in just a hard roller, and it doesn't pick up wax. It doesn't lay down wax. Because I looked up the properties of microfiber online, it did say that the maximum safe temperature of microfiber is 95°C, and I'm running at least that in my skillet here. It's hard to run a skillet very cool. They're not designed for that. So the thermostat on this one bottoms out about 100°C. So these are not what you want to buy. You do not want a microfiber, in my opinion. It works great for a while, and then it doesn't work at all. It doesn't pick up wax, and it doesn't lay it down on the foundation at all. So I'm just going to use up the 5 that I have, and then I'll have to find something else. I think I have some foam rollers in the other building still. Those work just fine. I just thought I wanted to try something different that I saw used online. That's how we learn, right? So what I won't do is I won't leave the roller sitting in the skillet to overheat. And I want to reiterate, my comments should not be taken out of context. I would never be so bold as to say something Bob Benny said wasn't right. I don't know what kind of a nap roller he was using. He said it was a 3/8, and that's all I heard him say on the video. And I suspect that it is specifically, judging by my experience, it's not a microfiber material. So my search continues. If you know of a 4-inch roller that has a nap that's not a microfiber, because I see a lot of them online it might be hard to find in a non-microfiber material.